Welcome to That Level Podcast, episode 66. I'm Vince.
I'm Colin.
I'm David.
Usually.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about TV shows, especially considering that's what I've been uploading for shorts. Things that we felt either didn't get a good shake, the season ended too, or the series ended too soon, or, we
Possibly
feel
went too long.
went too long, yeah. So, all right, guys. And so going into the whole thing with Justified, since that's one of the things, I know that me and David have seen it, but Colin has not.
So, yeah, I mean, like Colin was saying, right, before we kick this whole thing off, it's for as good as that show was and for as long as it ran, because it went
Six
seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a show that went 6 seasons, Colin had never heard of it. And even when I remember it being a thing, man, I don't remember a lot of word of mouth going around that show, but I mean, it was solid. It was good. The fact that it's all done by Elmore Leonard, right? He's a pretty famous author,
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking in the group, right, about how he's had actually quite a good number of his movies actually turned into films, and some of them pretty well beloved, right? Like you had 3:10 to Yuma is a great Western. A lot of people cite it as one of their favorites, right? You had the Get Shorty and Be Cool, which are kind of oddball movies, but those are fun. And then I know the other big one they had was Mr. Majestic, starring the one and only Charles Bronson. So I mean, he's been around the block, and so it was cool to see a TV rendition, and I'm definitely looking forward to the new limited series to get a little bit more Raylan, because it's just, you feel good when you see Timothy Oliphant saunter onto the screen with an accent, right? Whether it be Justified or Deadwood, Mandalorian, right? Man, if Timothy Oliphant's putting on his cowboy outfit, then you're good to go, right?
Well, and then I know that a couple of comments I've seen for the show is like they didn't even know about the show, and it's like, where was this show at? Where can they watch it? And I was telling somebody, it's like this originally aired on FX. Same with Sons of Anarchy, and I can understand most people probably didn't have cable at the time when this show was coming out. But man,
that's another interesting point. Sons of Anarchy and Justified overlapped with each other a little bit. And there was so much hype over Sons of Anarchy that Justified got kind of, you go over sitting in your chair for a little bit, and then it'll be your turn. It's like getting to sit at the little kids' table during Thanksgiving.
I mean, which is funny because I mean, Justified is just as good, if not a couple seasons even better than Sons of Anarchy ever was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it has such good villains. I mean, season 2, right?
Season 2 has the best villains,
dude. But then you get later on, you get Limehouse, right? This kind of gray area dude who's playing all sides. Mm-hmm. That he's a great character. There's I don't want to go off into all of it, so Colin can sit through and figure out everybody for himself. But man,
go ahead and talk a little bit about it. It's going to be a couple weeks before I get to it, and I am up to my knees and making sure my studio is ready to go. So by the time I go to watch it, some of this is going to go away. So go ahead and talk a little bit about it if you want. I'm good. It's just talk about the early stuff first. that way, when it gets to the good stuff later on, I can go, yay.
I mean, the most important thing to understand is that, especially when it comes to the first season, it plays more as a police procedural, mm-hmm. with a bunch of like backwoods, redneck, southern, flavoring to it. But it's not until season 2 that you start getting more of. I mean, there's kind of an overarching villain that's playing out in season 1, but season 2 is when it really starts turning away from the police procedural and leaning more into every episode's kind of interconnecting itself to the overall story as a whole. So the first season's a little misleading. It's still really fun. There's still a lot of really cool moments. A lot of it is actually, if I recall right, it's been a while since I've read any of the material that it's based on, but I believe a lot of the moments in the first season are directly lifted from the books, mm-hmm. and kind of problems and things that Raylan finds his way into. But I mean, Raylan's just such an awesome character, right? we kind of talked about it a little bit, where he's just this man out of time, right? Where he tells people, hey, look, this is what I'm gonna, if you do X, I'm gonna do Y.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, you ain't. And then they find out that he is pretty
Yep.
quick.
And he gets himself into some situations where he almost like just lucks out. He just rolled that 69 or that nat 20, you know, he's there. But, you know, the one thing too is like, but he has that friend that, you know, who causes mischief, that it's like they borderline on the parallels of each other. And that's Boyd Crowder. Both those characters are great throughout the whole series. But
yeah, man, that series put Walton Goggins on the map.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me ask you both quick this. Just from what I've seen of the early couple of seasons, have you ever seen the Patrick Swayze movie Next of Kin?
I don't think I have.
No.
He's a cop who comes to the big city to avenge a family member's death, but it's very backwoods meets big city.
Mm-hmm.
This is the reverse.
I'm getting a similar vibe from the trailers and the stuff that I'm seeing.
So, but it's kind of that, but the aftermath of it. It's backcountry guy goes to the big city as a federal agent. He gets in trouble and gets sent back to the backwoods where he doesn't want to be.
Okay.
He doesn't want to be home because he hates it there and he hates everyone there. But he's great at his job because he knows everyone there. Mm-hmm. And so he just kind of gets stranded for a good long while, having to deal with all the nonsense that goes on there. So it's a punishment for him. But yeah, it's like I said, that definitely sounds very familiar, but it's a little bit more of a twist to it.
So it's one of those things too that, you know, I would have loved to seen a prequel series to see Raylan growing up and with the family, and then, you know, between the Givens and the Crowders and everything else, all the, you know, pot growing and meth and all that stuff, and just how like how the families went from being legitimate people, you know, working in the coal mines to finding other ways to make money and not kill themselves.
Yeah, unfortunately, the author Elmore Leonard passed away during season 4 or 5, I want to say. Mm-hmm. Like he got to one of the later seasons and then he ended up passing away from it. So, because he was integral in almost that entire show, and I think that's kind of like Martin Wright being heavily involved, especially with House of the Dragon and some of the early Game of Thrones stuff. Right, kind of kept it on track, kept it making more sense than what we got later, and that's definitely what Justified felt like. Except it carried all the way through to the end. I mean, all the way up to the finale. Man, that show is fantastic. So I'd be a little leery of them trying to pull that off now, but I'm sure give FX a little time. I'm sure they'll get around to trying to do a prequel series and then a full-on reboot and all the rest of the goodness that we've come to expect from entertainment these days.
Well, considering the fact that, like, you know, the same thing with Sons of Anarchy, how the fact that like that creator did the whole thing all the way through, and like I remember just like him coming up with the character for Jax and stuff was him riding around with the real biker gang and stuff, and being able to come up with these characters and everything.
That dude's wild, man.
Vince Gilligan or Gillian.
Yeah.
Wait, is it Vince Gilligan?
I think it's Vince Gilligan.
Because I know he was also the writer. The guy who created Sons of Anarchy was also a writer on The Shield, and he's married to, or at least he was back when Sons of Anarchy was going on. He was married to Married with Children mom.
Katie Seagal.
Yep. Yeah, her husband is the guy who created Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, no. So,
I got, you know, one thing I will say about Sons of Anarchy, it's a great show.
Oh yeah, Kurt Sutter. Sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I'm trying to remember.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I got the same feel for that. His writing knowledge was like Mario Puzo's writing for The Godfather. Like he knew a lot more, and he had people close by to him when he was writing and putting it together than the average bear would know.
Mm-hmm.
That was my feel for it early on, which worked. You know, for however you get your sources to make it accurate, you get your sources. You know? Yeah. But it to me, it felt the same, which was one of the reasons I got attracted to it. you know, mind you, it meandered a little bit here and there throughout the course of the series. But it felt early on. It felt very authentic.
Yeah, I mean, well, and then we got the second series, the Mayans, which I didn't get a chance to watch any of that.
Yeah, I watched a little of it. I didn't feel it. So
yeah, I haven't gotten around to Mayans. I haven't even watched the last season or two of Sons of Anarchy. I kind of, man, when stuff runs too long, which I guess kind of plays into what we're talking about.
Right.
I'll drop off after a while, man. Like I can hang with this. I can hang with a series. Like Justified was pushing it. I love Justified so much, man. But like there were some times where it was like I would forget about an episode 1 week or something like that, just because it's the nature of it, right? Yeah. Maybe it's cultural that we've gotten to this point where it's constantly moving to the next thing that I'm a little bit caught into. But yeah, man, like Sons of Anarchy, I didn't quite get to the end of it. I need to go back and finish it though.
Yeah, I call it supernatural syndrome.
Yeah. Well, and just to do clarification, I remember who Vince. I just looked it up. Vince Gilligan was the one who did the Breaking Bad. So that's
Oh,
that's
okay.
Yeah. So I was like, which is another great show.
Too.
Only ran 6 seasons, I think.
Yeah, Breaking Bad, I think, was a great example of how a series should be run. They knew that it was winding down. They had to fulfill a commitment and stuff like that and stuff. But I think that Breaking Bad just about got it right. It was, maybe the last season could have been a little shorter, but they wanted to tell the story in a certain way, and it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even get to watch Better Call Saul, which I heard was great.
Yeah, that's on my list too. But going back to Sons of Anarchy, it was good, but if they lessened it by one season and managed to work 5 and 6 or whatever, I think it was 5. Was it
7?
6 or
7.
7
yeah, if they'd taken 6 and 7 and made it into one season, they could have tightened up the story and they could have ended it on a really strong note and left potential for other stuff. And Mayans could have still come out. There could have been options for stuff down the road, but
well, it goes back to the whole thing of like how with Sons, everything just went to the head. They had to finish it out, and Jax did what he did, and cleared up, basically making the gang be legit after that, and
had
a future for his son. But what you think of Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones tried to do the same thing, and that turned out to be complete shit.
I mean
that's one of my 2 things that I'll never watch.
No, I mean with Game of Thrones, it was they didn't give anybody anything that they wanted, right? It was like, oh hey, we want to have this epic fight with the with the Zombie King. No, he gets taken out by Arya in kind of a crummy way, right? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, hey, Daenerys and Jon are gonna get together and they're gonna be the ones to conquer it all, and then she goes crazy and burns the whole place down, and then oh hey everybody, look, the cripple kid's the king. Oh yeah, that's what everybody wanted. Thanks, appreciate you. Thanks for coming. We yeah, all right. I mean, I guess it's just like they just decided to just go with. They just walked up, after George, was like, "Hey guys, I don't have any more material," and to be honest, I don't know anything after the point that I've written up to this. So y'all just do whatever, and whatever they don't like, I won't do. Right?
It's a good way to like test it out, right?
And then the story writers were like, okay, all right, guys, here we go. We're going to come up to this point, and we're just going to run as far as we can into left field. That's what we're going to do. And that's what they just kept doing. They're just like, yeah, we're just gonna run way out over there and way out over there again. And yeah, people are getting upset. It's fine. Hey, that whole episode with the giant epic battle that everyone's kind of been waiting for, we're going to make it as dark as humanly possible to where barely anything can be seen, because that's how war is, right? So it's authentic. It's real, I guess. Yeah, all right, next episode. Got to kill the Zombie King. And then next episode, we got to burn the place down, and then it's over. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate all your money.
There's another short for you, Vinny.
Yeah, there you go. There's another short. So the biggest thing though too is it kind of goes back to the whole thing of like She-Hulk. It's like I felt like that. It's like
No.
we were expecting this, and then the whole series was complete shit. But
not all of it.
well,
95%.
95%. Only the episode with Daredevil. The only episode that actually felt like it was the perfect structure for the whole show was her being a lawyer Daredevil. And being a superhero at night and teaming up with a superhero who was Daredevil. Of course, she slept with him at the end, but
after that, start over.
Yeah, it was. But anyway, we've already discussed that in another episode.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, they're just that. Those are the most disappointing shows, right? The ones that start off with so much promise and then they just muddle it up towards the end. Like, you just said Supernatural syndrome, right? I'm pretty sure we've talked about it before when we got to talking about Constantine and stuff. But man, Supernatural just ran way, way too long.
Yeah.
Like at one point, it was like season 10, the big selling point halfway through the latter half of the life of that show was, hey, everybody, come on back. It's just like how we started it. They're back just doing Monster of the Week episodes. It's like, why are you back to that? You've like taken out the devil. You've essentially, dealt with like gods, all this stuff, but now we're going to go back to dealing with skinwalkers or something. Like how? Yeah. That's like the Dragon. I'd be like Dragon Ball Z, right? After they've like gone and taken down, who's the next guy, and that they'll have to face off against Granola, right? Because they haven't fought Granola in Super.
Well, as far as the animated, yes, they have not fought Granola yet.
About, right? The manga, they're already up to Black Frieza and all the rest of that, right? But it's like, yeah, okay, after they get done fighting Black Frieza, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, everybody, we're going to go back to the weird episode where Goku and Piccolo have to learn how to drive. And then after that, they're going to fight Raditz.
Oh, hold on.
Not Super Saiyan Raditz, just Raditz.
And I would have said, it's like, oh no, it's the Saiyans. What Saiyans?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I go back even further. Just give Goku back his tail for no reason whatsoever. Go full GT, right? Just make him a kid again. Make Yamcha and Bulma be a couple again. Vegeta just doesn't exist anymore. It's like, wait, what happened to the show? What's going on?
Yeah.
Why are we back to this?
There's reasons why GT is not canon, but hey.
Thank God.
It's just, man, like crap. It's just like, and it's hard to stop it, right? When that money train is rolling and you've just got women lining up for miles at conventions to go see the brothers and all the rest of that. It's like it's hard to say, okay, guys, here's where we're pulling the plug. This is the end. This is where we got to do it. Like,
yeah, but there's tons of actors that already have that, and they've had their limelight. You know, these guys can literally do the same thing, or they can move on to other TV shows or movies.
And they have.
I mean, once after the selling of CW, when we found out that they were costing like hundreds of thousands to $1 million a day is what they were losing. It's like, okay, now I kind of understand why Supernatural stayed around forever. That was probably the only thing keeping them in the black, right?
Well,
and then once Supernatural died, it slowly started going, and then it just kind of.
Yeah. Well, it did start with Smallville first, and then it was Supernatural.
That's right.
And then they started to try to do the Flash and Arrowverse, and that was pretty good. It just kind of went downhill towards the end.
Yeah. There was some awkward decisions in those shows that I to this day don't understand, but that's
another show that I want to talk about for a second. Smallville. It was great and they had it paced out, but they seemed like they had to do a lot of filler. But when you finally get to that final episode where he's in the outfit and he's going after Doomsday and he's saving the world, it's almost a montage. What? You knew that was the ultimate goal, and you crammed it into 8 minutes of the last episode, and you can only get a blur of the suit, which was supposed to be actually the Brandon Routh suit from Superman 4, I think, or 5, or it was one of the it was a recycled suit, and they just put him on it and put him in the air, and that was it. No, no, you go to your room. No, think about what you did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, you didn't even get a good look at him. You didn't even get a nice close up. The next time you got a good look at close up of Tom Welling as Clark was years later during the Crisis miniseries on the CW Arrowverse. And he wasn't in uniform. He gave up his powers. He took the kryptonite ring and he chucked it and said, "Let's go fuck yourself." That was all we got. We never got to see Tom Welling in the suit proper, which is what a lot of people were waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
You got it when you got it. He was this fucking big, this big on the screen, pushing shit up in the air. Really? No. Go to your room.
I mean, go ahead, David.
I was gonna say, I when it comes to stuff like that, and with a lot of this stuff where it's the iterations that we see of characters are completely different than what we want them to be. It's like it's hard to tell, and I'm sure that there's some website out there that has all the answers for it, but so much of it feels like there's so much jockeying behind the scenes over rights and about where you can show this and where you can show that, and if you do this here, it'll confuse everybody over there. And it's like, guys, like why is it so hard to divorce the idea of, hey, you know what happens over here has no effect or bearing on what happens over there because they are separate things and entities. It's like people don't understand that people can have that in their mind. They can understand that Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is not in the same universe as Batfleck's Batman because that's the really awkward Joker with all the tattoos. And that's beside the point. But it's like, what? I don't understand why this is such a pain in the butt to get through people's minds and why it's such a thing that they fight over. Because then you do have moments like that. This awesome setup, this what you should be this culminating moment, and it's great, but it falls flat because you just missed the mark by just that much, right?
But
just that
much. Yeah. Well, considering the fact that we had a Swamp Thing TV show that didn't really take off. We had a Constantine show that didn't really take off. And both these were really good shows.
Good. So good.
The crossover potential was so close. It was right there. It was right there.
I would have killed to see more Constantine in that version of Swamp, because like that version of Swamp Thing, man, the body horror in that show was so good. There was man, I don't know what it was. It was what funding and stuff going on with the studio that they were using and a bunch of other stuff. But man, that was a missed opportunity. Especially whenever you look at the DC shows now, right? The ones that are taken off where they took the darker, edgier. I mean, Doom Patrol has the humor side to it, but it's the more adult side of things. It's like you couldn't have just eaten one more season of Swamp Thing, just one more to see if, because like Titans, man, the first season of Titans was rough. Oh my word. Yeah. But then season 2 comes out and it's like, oh, you're starting to find your groove. You're starting to find your voice. It's starting to set in place. We're starting to see this thing gel and come together. And now, right, we're into season 4, and my brother, who is the biggest Titans fan that I know, loves the show, and he's been enjoying the heck out of it.
So, I'm fairly happy with Brother Blood from what I've seen of it so far. That's always been one of the most interesting villains. So, I mean, Wolfman Perez really put it together when they designed him and created him. So,
it's also been a missed opportunity because we had there was an opportunity where they were going to bring Bruce Wayne into the Arrowverse. That didn't pan out.
Yeah,
and they did Batgirl, Batgirl, or Batwoman. It wasn't great.
And we got a brief moment of Bruce Wayne, but it was an alternate universe. Yeah. But still, look who it was.
Kevin Conroy.
Okay? Kevin Conroy. I mean, if you're going to do an alternate Bruce Wayne, that's your choice. Loved that. The fact that they were hinting around and all the little Easter eggs of Wayne Technologies and Wayne Enterprises and all this other stuff. And hey, we're going to get some kind of reference to Bruce Wayne, and it never happened, except for that. The Crisis series. They didn't really do as well as I'd hoped they did with it, but that show gave us so much more. It actually acknowledged everything that came before it.
Here was an opportunity where they could have brought in just even like, not if you didn't want Batman Bruce Wayne, you could have brought Dick Grayson Nightwing.
Yes.
Him being a representative of Wayne Industries, coming in, working with Ollie for his corporation and doing stuff, and then him fighting crime. There could have been this whole like intrigue of who he is. And then you could have done this big season finale or whatever where Bruce shows up. You know, and then we had Diggle we find out he's John. And you don't even give him the ring.
And then just nothing.
Yeah.
And the saddest part is, you know, everybody in that stupid universe got those two heroes who are the two best friends of the Green Lantern, Flash and Green Arrow, the two best friends of Lantern, and we never saw him ever. The
references were great, like where they had Hal's jacket on the hanging on at the bar there.
Yeah,
it established that Hal was there, but you never got Hal, and it's just like slapping you across the face.
Yeah,
like, I mean, you want it? Nope.
Yeah, it's like, you got a flak jacket.
It's like Hal exists, but he doesn't know Barry. He doesn't know Ollie. They never come into contact with each other. It's like, man, the desert that is my character continues, and it's.
Well, you could have brought in Wonder Woman. You could have brought in Booster Gold with Blue Beetle.
They did bring in Booster Gold at the end. They tried.
Okay.
Right at the end of Legends of Tomorrow, Faison there. What's his name there? Black actor. He was in. I think he was in Scrubs, maybe.
I know who you're talking about.
The last couple of episodes of the final season of Legends of Tomorrow was Booster Gold. They just didn't get the time to develop him. And that was a disappointment because for a little while, the only way they acknowledged him was a hat with a little star on it or something. And eventually they were building up, that's Booster Gold. They didn't get the chance to develop it, which sucks because, you know, you had Ray Palmer there all this time. You brought in Booster Gold finally. The two of them could have gotten along famously, but no. And now it's going to get me out of James Gunn rant. God. The man keeps saying he's going to say this, and he's going to do this, and it's all going to be connected, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we're going to tell you, you're just going to have to wait a minute. Oh, it's going to be this.
I mean, the guys are having to, you know, scrabble together and put together this whole plan, right? Their 10-year plan that they're supposed to be.
He probably already had it going early on.
The 10-year plan. I'm going to be 51 in 10 years. What are you talking about? No, 52 in 10 years. No, this is. You know,
I don't want to be 65 and have a new DC universe. I don't. James Gunn. He doesn't want to acknowledge any of the rumors. Cavill is gone. He's not gone. Dwayne Johnson is gone. Maybe he's not gone. Black Blue Beetle is the only solid thing we're offering, but maybe not.
Oh no.
We'll clarify it. Oh no, this is.
No. We got Ezra Miller still as the Flash.
Maybe.
Please.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. And James Gunn won't say yes or no to any of it. Oh, it's all part of the plan. We're going to reveal part of it. No. Get out there and say something. Something. Yes. No.
Okay. How long does it take to sit down with a group of writers to come up with your outlining plan of what you're going to accomplish?
Yeah.
Maybe take a couple of months, but not as long as they're like peddling their thumbs about it. I mean,
it's been 6 months since they announced him, since they announced the two of them taking over, and he was already knee deep in DC, and they probably already knew that they wanted him to move forward because of how well he was handling the Suicide Squad and how well his vision was working out for everything. They probably already had that stuff in the works early on. So they probably mentioned to him, if there was probably a lot more said than, well, another year from now, it'll be like, oh, well, we knew that these discussions were this early on. Oh, we knew that we wanted him in a position of, and he probably started mapping stuff out. But nobody wants to say anything. They want the rumors. They want that hype. They want that attention, and it's aggravating.
But you can only tease out that tension for so long before it turns into aggravation, right?
Exactly. And we passed that in like October.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it's like how much of it is Gunn trying to say, hey, this is where we want to go, and the studio stepping over it and saying, no. No to that, no to that, no to that, yes to that. Yeah. How much is the studio kind of pulling him back?
Hand. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You know what? That's a fair point. Warner Brothers has a habit of literally shooting itself in the foot, and they've got James Gunn. Honestly, probably one of the few people who could save what they've got going on. But if they're tying his hands at every fourth turn, then all he's doing is a NASCAR race.
It's not that hard. It is not that hard to put together a film, a script, with the budget that they're going to offer, get the right actors for it, and just make a film that fits within the new continuity they want to establish. I don't know.
They got tons of great characters. They don't have to rely on the same big ones. They can put them on the shelf temporarily. Diane Jenkins there, or is that right? Jenkins, whatever her first name is.
Well, she's out now.
There was a whole miscommunication about the third Wonder Woman script, so they said, "Fine, we're going to shelve it." They both, Patty Jenkins, thank you. Fine, put Wonder Woman on a shelf for a little bit. Let's let the good stuff of what she did. Let's let it marinate. We lost a great Superman. What they're going to do about that? Don't know. Let that stew a little bit. Let the people go, okay, you're going to give us another Superman. It better be great. Ben Affleck didn't suck as Batman. He wasn't the best one we've ever had.
He never got a chance to really be Batman. He never got a movie to establish who he was. It's bad when you piggyback off of other actors that are good, some of them, or the written character is horrible.
Right.
They're
trying to make Batman the next James Bond, essentially, in my eyes. Who is going to take the mantle next? But you can't have the mantle be established if you're going to have crap writing in the interim. Ben Affleck, I thought had a chance. I thought he did good. Okay, I was on the fence about it for years. Put it out there finally. Batman vs Superman. Okay, this is what he had to work with. He did a good job. Justice League did a really good job. Especially in the future part. That, to me, was where his Batman really shined. Because he really got to get to the core of what he saw Batman as and how he wanted to play him. But after that, nothing. Is he going to be Batman? We don't know. He wants to be a director. We don't know.
Well,
meanwhile, you've got the other Batman movies going on. Okay.
Right. Well, the problem is
Pattinson's Batman is fantastic. Then they're bringing back Michael Keaton, who is my favorite Batman. But now, so it's got to be disheartening for somebody trying to establish themselves as a character and not getting the opportunity to do that.
Well, we're at this point now where by the time they actually make a movie for one of these characters, of course, Henry Cavill is going to be too old.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck's going to be too old. They need to start casting characters that are going to fit with what the story is going to be and be able to be in that role for the next 10 to 15 years without them you're probably going to need someone in their 30s playing Batman or playing younger. Superman.
Again, as much as, Robert Pattinson's Batman, great Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Could they make him fit the bigger picture? I don't know.
The missed
it works in its universe and its thing. Would that translate to the bigger picture? I don't know. Great movie, going to be a great series, going to be a great spinoff, going to watch every one of them. But would it work in a Justice League environment? I don't know. Affleck's Batman worked in that environment.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and now they're saying there's not going to be 3 or 4 Batmans.
Yeah. Well, if they do a technically, I always say this: Earth One, that would be across the board for everything. Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman. Come up with a Flash. Be great. Be great stories. We already got a possible good story for the Teen Titans with that as well. They're all origin movies, and then once they get established, you can do the bigger come together movies. But you got to establish these characters first.
Right.
It can't be dark and brooding. You need to have the Batman should be dark and brooding to show the tragedy of him losing his parents, and then the struggle of him becoming the man, the legend.
Don't show he's dying again.
I'm not saying you don't have to show that, but the thing is,
I'm saying
a complete origin story as far as that. But have it to where him going through the journey of becoming Batman and failing and constantly having to re-innovate his suit and his tech because it's tearing his body apart. It's like he's got all the money in the world, but all that money can't help fix his body, so he has to start buying more tech and gear to make it to where it doesn't tear so much of his body out.
He has to be able to change the environment to keep at his pace. Exactly. Yeah. And that was one of the things that I did feel from the Batman. Okay, he recognized that, and he wanted to be able to use his mind, and he wanted to be able to concentrate, and he wanted to be able to focus and be able physically fit enough to get the job done, but he wasn't always there because basically it was, for all intents and purposes, a year one story.
Mm-hmm.
It was at the tail end of a year one where he was more established and he had more things figured out. I would have liked to have seen a little earlier, but I'm not going to begrudge that because
he stabbed by Hooker?
Yeah, he got stabbed by Hooker. That's year one stuff. Okay, you know what? It happens. Somebody gets their claws in around the side. Boom. What are you gonna do?
Well, yeah, of course. He's not this all-knowing superhero right away,
Yeah, not yet. Of course.
So having him go through a process of learning and failing and it just taking its toll on him.
Yes.
Having the fact of what I liked about year one technically that movie was kind of a cross between year one, Earth One, and Long Halloween, all rolled into one film.
Okay, yes, that is very fair.
There's a lot of inspirations for that movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that back when they said they're I don't know, early production of it. They said, okay, these are the books that we drew from. There was like a dozen of them. The ones you noted were about the top of the list, but there were other stories that they drew from. I think they drew from too much. They needed to tighten it up a little bit more.
Well, honestly, the fact that the guy was more like Hush than he was the Riddler.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest thing is they want to get away from the flamboyantness, but it's or at least what the characters are. And because they think that if they're like that, they're going to be goofy. And it's but Tim Burton established that you could have these characters be who they were in the comic and have a great presence on film.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, you could do, if you wanted to do Riddler, right? I mean, the Riddler from, say, the animated series was not goofy, right? I mean, you could take some of the things that he did and not make them as over the top extravagant, like the giant flying robot hand in the maze. But they could have done that whole labyrinth, right? Being trapped in there, having to figure out the puzzles as they go along, all the while the Riddler's taunting them as they're trying to get to the center of the maze to save this person, right? Yeah. Or, I mean, with the tech and everything that it is, you absolutely could have done the other episode of animated series where Batman's trapped in the virtual reality, right? And he's hooked up to that whole thing. And if he dies in there, then he gets
dies in real life.
dies, and it's him and Riddler going literally brain for brain against each other the whole time. It's like you could do versions that you could make that, you could saw the crap out of that, right? Make the contraption be all crazy and like bolted in and all sorts of horrible nonsense. You could make it look terrifying,
right?
But make it awesome, right? It could be done and not in a campy way. It's just, they skew way to the other side of it. It's like, all right.
And again, I blame
Schumacher.
Thank you. Yeah. I can't even say the guy's name anymore. They want to be so anti-Schumacher that they're willing to tip the scale on one side too much. And I think that he's still the albatross around their neck, even 25 years later. I think, what was it, 95 that the last one came out, 97?
Yeah, I think so.
So it's been roughly 20, 25 years, and it's still an albatross.
Well, I'll just be honest. I'm kind of tired of Batman. I remember.
That's fair.
I remember back before the Arrowverse became a thing, when they were discussing whether Arrow was going to be a TV show or they were going to do a movie. And the movie they were discussing was Supermax, right? Where Green Arrow was going to have been, he's doing his vigilante thing, and then he gets arrested and thrown into a Supermax prison with a bunch. It wasn't going to be, A tier villains. They were going to be going for like the B and C tier villains, and he was going to have to contend with and get his way out of this prison filled with supervillains. It's like, that's a really awesome and interesting idea that you could go off of, and then that whole concept just kind of died, and then we got the. But what's funny is what Stephen Amell is talking about, wanting to come back as Ollie, right? For a little bit.
At some point, yes.
Hey guys, it doesn't have to be the Arrowverse, because Ollie's dead, right? Or some nonsense like that. I lost track of Arrow a long time ago. But you could absolutely bring him back and do that concept all over. Just take Stephen Amell, make him Ollie, throw him in prison, and let's see what kind of shenanigans you can come up with to put him through until he can get out. That would be a limited series.
Considering that could be like the Raid, you just take the second Raid movie. He goes in there to defend somebody and stuff, and no one knows who he is, and he has to defend himself in the prison, and he gets brought out to fight a bigger villain.
Yeah.
Both those Raid movies are great inspiration for things.
It's going to be interesting to see how they bring him back. Is it going to be in a dream sequence? Is it going to be where Barry actually dies, like he was supposed to in Crisis, but they made another Barry die? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they work it. If they actually resurrect him because the spirit of the Spectre says, you know what, you deserve a second chance. Your friend needs your help, which has happened canonically in the books. Mm-hmm. Spectre has stepped in and said, all right, especially with John Constantine, he gives that man so much crap. Holy cow. You're not dead yet. Guess what? That type of thing.
But yeah.
I just want to tie back into Constantine because that man did not get a fair shake in the series.
No, Matt Ryan. Yeah, no.
The only way you're going to get closure is if you go into the beginning or the end of season 5, I think it is, and go through mid-7, I think it is, where they basically take the John Constantine story from the series that got axed at NBC, and they say, okay, we're going to work with that, and they give him his story. They give him his shot at finishing it.
Legends of Tomorrow, you think of?
Yeah, Legends. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
I got my advisor up in the corner here.
Well, that's we got
go ahead.
Keanu Reeves doing his Constantine movie, so I wonder how.
Is he?
I want to see the second one. I'm curious to see where it's going to go.
Yeah,
I actually liked it. Liked that movie.
Constantine was solid. Like, that was a really solid movie.
Yes.
Like, start to finish. And it was surprising that I guess it was before we were recording, but it feels like there are some characters and there's some series that are just cursed, right? Constantine got his shot, failed, got his shot, not failed, but cut down, right? Got his shot, cut down. It's like, when we were talking earlier, right? The Tick is the exact same way. Gets an animated cartoon, goes away. Live action show, cut down. Live action show, cut down. And everybody looks back on the shows and they're like, those are great. What happened to them? Well, they got canceled because I guess the viewership died or something. I don't know. But it's just sad, right? It's sad when you see good, solid, strong shows that are just kicking off and they get cut down. And then meanwhile, you look over and you're like, you see some of this other crap that's out there, and you're like, do we really need another season of this show where like everyone's dad has cancer, all of their moms are, like struggling to come to terms with, the fact that they're old and like all their dogs died. Like, do we really need that level of drama and sadness and pain when we could just funnel just a little bit of that over here and make something awesome? Like, I don't get it, but
case in point, Riverdale. Great concept, should not have gone as long as it has. Yes, they're piling in all the other Archie comics verse or whatever you want to call it. Like Sabrina's coming in, and there's rumors they're going to have Wendy and Casper, and all this stuff is going to tie together, supposedly.
The longest running comic book now.
Yeah. I think it needs to come to an end.
So it just brings me to like one of my favorite shows for a while was the Sarah Connor Chronicles, Terminator.
Yes.
Great.
Did not get a fair
like that second season where they decided they knew they weren't going to get a third season. So they just kind of had to bookend it. And it's like you can tell the moment where it went from John collecting the people that are going to be part of his resistance later on to them all dying and then him getting teleported to the future. I'm like, it was a missed opportunity. I
totally missed opportunity. That show had so much potential. Absolutely.
A similar case to that was the Green Lantern animated series.
Yes.
I'm bringing it back to this, but man, that series had a mid-season break, right? And during that mid-season break, they got told, I guess, hey, y'all, we're not coming back for a second season. So the second half of that show is literally everything. It's like, okay, bring in the other Lantern Corps, bring in the Book of Black, bring in the Anti-Monitor, bring in the Manhunter. Just, man, they dragged everything into that show at the end, and it's great. But it's like, man, how awesome would this show have been if you just give them a little bit more time, just a little bit more time, a little bit more, more of this story. And those are heartbreaking, right? Where you see all the promise, and then it just gets truncated all the way down, and you're like, God, man.
That's what Travis just said. They took 5 seasons worth of stuff and put it in a half a season.
Yeah.
Oh man. But what's crazy is with that show, it was good.
It was really good. It was really good.
God.
Well, did you ever see the Minutemen? I think it was the one about the girl that gets hooked up with this one dude that go around and fight like aliens and other weirdness throughout the world, like MIB kind of in a way, but it's a funny show. That only got like 12 episodes, and for the first season, or that was it. They only did one season, but it was like a great concept that could have literally gone on as in a whole other show.
Yeah.
What about what was it? Almost Human, right? With Carl Urban.
Carl Urban, yeah, that was great. But then they canceled that. You had what was it? The Flashback or Flash Forward or something like that. It was a show.
Flash Forward. It was like 1.8 seasons or something like that.
Well, they only got one season out of it. It didn't even go.
Well, there was more to it, but it got truncated down into it. They had a lot of it figured out, but it had to get compressed. Mm-hmm. So it was actually more than a season's worth of stuff that they put in there, which is why it got really weird at the end.
Yeah. Well, you had what was it? The other one was that one?
There was
Revolution. I think it was right. The one about that only got what, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, maybe.
I mean, that was good stuff, and then you got crap like Wayward Pines, which got 2-something seasons, I think. Wayward Pines was advertised as the next Twin Peaks, and it was Absolute garbage.
So, but Wayward Pines is I think that's if it's the one I'm thinking of. There's like 2 or 3 shows that all came out kind of same around the same time, and David Tennant I felt like was in all of them, playing the exact same character, and it confused me. And what made it even worse is there was a British version that came out, and then there was an American version, and Tennant was in both of them, and they were literally the same show they were tweaked a little bit to make this one a little bit more,
American versus British. Yeah, it's
cookies,
like it's like bringing in what's his face
this one over here, cookies or cookies, right? Like that. That was the confusion.
Yes, they pulled a Peter Dinklage with it, with the Four Weddings in a, or what was it? Where he was in the what was it?
The funeral movie.
Yeah, the funeral movie where he was the same character in both movies, and one was British and one was American. That's what they did.
Those movies are so funny, though.
They are. They're great movies. So they pulled a Peter Dinklage with the David Tennant thing, and it didn't work, which was sad because I think it was bad writing. But the two funeral movies, I wish I could remember the name of them.
Death at a Funeral.
Was it Death at a Funeral? Yes, Death at a Funeral. Thank you. Man, I got this book of knowledge over here walking around.
Just the reveal, right? The reveal. The first time you watch that movie, and you just whenever they finally show you what's going on, oh my god, those movies are so funny.
The British one was great, and Peter Dinklage was great as both of them. And the American version, the one thing for me that really stood out was James Marsden tripping balls up on the roof naked. That to me was the best part of it, of the American version, because he's just up there all in his own little world during this whole somber funeral. Everything's a fucking mess because him tripping balls up on the roof and just little by little, his character just goes way off the rails. And you just like, what is he going to do next? What's going to happen next? And that carried some of the extra weight on the American version, but you still had the same plot points and you still had the same character, Peter Dinklage, in both movies doing the same thing. And it was brilliant. That man was brilliant in both of them. And I to this day, I will watch both movies back to back as a duology.
Well, it's funny too. You have like Red Dwarf. We had the American version, and there's a British version, and that only went like one season for the American version, and the British one went on for
a whole long time. That was fantastic. Yes, love Red Dwarf. My dad, biggest Red Dwarf fan you'll meet. Oh, such a fan. Great stuff. And it's like let's parlay that into something else that doesn't get a fair shake. When they do Hitchhiker's Guide, okay, there's been a couple of different iterations. A couple of British, one American. They just couldn't seem to capture the material. They got this close. Let it go.
The one British property that I would love to see them explore. It would be great to see them do a TV show of it to go full in on. Would be and you have to pick one group. Really, well, I mean, you wouldn't even have to pick one group. It would be better to pick one group, and you should pick the Night's Watch. But Discworld, right? Like to go in, and like, there's been a couple movies, right? They did 2 or 3 movies based on the Discworld properties, but like that's such a funny, and especially with them trying to do different people trying to do fantasy these days. If you're gonna do weird, actually, I take it back. I just realized BBC did the Night's Watch, but it's terrible. Like my brain, I'm sorry, it's so bad. My brain was like, yeah, they haven't done Night's Watch yet. They really need to do Night's Watch. And then somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm like, no, wait.
Oh no, pump the brakes there.
This was the moment of David going, for one, yeah, pump the brakes. No, but it was more like the fact that you had literally wiped that from your brain because the fact it was so bad, and you're like, yeah, this is it, and then
we could all see the light
bulb. The systems goes boop boop boop. No, and then you went, oh yeah, something was horrible. That was a bad analogy, but whatever. It's so funny.
This is a fun episode.
Something else that didn't get a fair shake: Spectacular Spider-Man.
Okay.
Spectacular Spider-Man.
Spectacular Spider-Man. Man, do you want to get on in this?
Sure.
Disney killed that.
Spectacular. Yes.
The stool. Travis wants to get in on this action.
Okay.
So we scoot over a little bit, ladies and gentlemen.
Probably not that camera, but
No, come on, get in here. Come on, get in here. It's fun. We got a whole new freaking bird, 2,500 subscribers, and come on, get on in here for a few minutes. All right, let him. This is a wealth of knowledge right here. This is
Spectacular Spider-Man. Reason why it didn't get a fair shake is completely because of intercompany bullshit.
Yes.
Sorry for the swearing, but basically because of the fact that the TV rights went from Sony back to Marvel. I think it was because of like a parlay to keep the movie rights or something. I don't remember, but because of the fact that it went back to Marvel, and then Marvel was bought by Disney. Disney didn't really want to keep the series anymore. They wanted to make their own thing, which was Ultimate Spider-Man, which Ultimate Spider-Man was not good because the writing was god awful. It had some redeeming bits, like it actually was tying Spider-Man into like the bigger elements of Marvel as a whole, like with the constant crossovers between like the Avengers, like some stuff with the X-Men. Shield was a major one. Like there was no actual Fantastic Four crossover at any point in that series. It was just a thing, I believe, which is a bit upsetting. But the show had a lot of potential with Spider-Man, but it's just completely fucked by the writing. Back to Spectacular, they just completely like stopped the series dead. And there's like I don't recall there ever being like a resolution to it or anything. It just completely just
it ended on a cliffhanger, real quickly.
Right. I haven't watched in a long time because it's not available on Disney Plus. Not surprisingly.
It is now. It is now. Because forever I kept checking and I was like, okay, Disney, like y'all own the rights to that, to Fox, to God, to everything. So you should have Spectacular Spider-Man by now. And everything. And then it was maybe a month or two ago, I got on Disney Plus for something to turn on for the kids. And all of a sudden I look down, I'm like, no. What? I can't be. Scroll on down, I'm like, they got it. They finally got it. Thank God. I need to sit down and watch it. Haven't, but it's in the ever growing, never diminishing list.
Wait, you don't pull the thing as a dad. It's like I'm gonna put something on for the kids, and you find it, and it's like, no, we're watching this. All right, we're gonna introduce you to Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh no. I will absolutely watch stuff for the kids, right? That's also for me. That's 100% a thing, but man, there's just so much to get to. There's so much to get to. I don't have time. I need to live life, but also enjoy stories. It's sad.
Dude, my back catalog for games is ridiculous because I'm working and making videos and the podcast and spending time as with my family. It's like where'd I get time?
You got some time with the family a little bit. I mean, that's like me with Callisto Protocol. Like the boy is almost beating it at this point. And every time I'm downstairs, like I'll hop on something real quick. I'll like turn on a baseball game or whatever just to play a match and then be done. He's like, yeah, why don't you play Callisto? I'm like, because I don't have hours right now to devote to sitting down and knocking it out. And he's like, you really need to get in there because I'm about to beat it before you. I'm like, you probably are. But don't worry, I'll catch up. Eventually, maybe.
Oops.
I hope.
Oops, your save data is gone. I'm sorry, son.
That actually happened. So that actually did happen to him once with Ghost of Tsushima, but I didn't mean to do it. It was the PlayStation 4 hard drive. It just died. It just died out of nowhere. And he was this close to getting the platinum trophy for Ghost. And then all of it gone, just away, right? Because I'm the one with the Plus account. He doesn't have the cloud backup, right? Whereas I do. So then he boots it back on, goes to play. Dad, why am I having to watch the intro cutscene? Where's my save data? I'm like, well, buddy, funny story. I had to replace the hard drive on the PS4 because it kind of died. Sorry.
I can just imagine the look on his face. It's just
sad. Man, he hasn't touched it since. we have the new one, right, for the PS5 that has the extra DLC. He refuses to play it. He won't.
Yeah.
He really loved the game. He and I both would
Yeah.
like talk to each other about it the whole time. I've gone in, I've beat the DLC that's specific to the PS5 version. I keep telling him like, "Bud, you just need to get on there and play it." He's like, "No, I'm not gonna do it." I refuse. I'm like, come on now, come on.
He's got long-lasting trauma.
Basically, it's kind of like
PS4,
Final Fantasy 7. It's me for Final Fantasy 7 back in the day when I was playing it on the PS2, and I got everything right. I got Knights of the Round for everybody. I got two gold chocobos. I beat everybody. I did everything. I had all the ultimate weapons. Everybody was maxed out. All I had to do was go fight Sephiroth. And then that one day I get in, I'm like, you know what? I haven't played 7 in a while. I need to go finish it. Throw in the disc, go to load the thing. None of my information's there. And it was on the PlayStation 2, so I'd gotten Final Fantasy 11, so I had the internal hard drive to it. So it's like, oh, I just need to move the information from the hard drive over to the memory card, and it'll be fine. And I go and I check, and I'm like, wait, no, that information's from like last year when I first started. Where's my new save data? Go look at the memory card, corrupt data. I'm like, son of a bit. And I didn't touch 7 ever until they came out with the not the the remaster, right, where it was the PC port to the PlayStation 4, so I could turn on fast forward on everything. I'm like, I'm not sitting here dumping 200 hours into this thing again. We're going on lightning speed.
Come on, David. That's what happened to me, man. Except for the fact that we had a Mad Catz memory card because we couldn't find a regular Sony brand one.
Yeah.
I had to start over, and I did. I wasn't going to let this game not be conquered.
I have all this wonderfully saved data for the PS3 versions of the new set of Ratchet and Clank games. Can't find the games anymore.
Oh,
the games are all gone. You cannot find anything of the new, like a Wrinkle, a Crack in Time, or any of those. Can't find them anywhere. Got all this wonderful saved data. Got all the gold weapons. Got all the super stuff, and it's just sitting there going, "Hey, you'd like to play me again, wouldn't you?" Well, yes, I would, but you can't. Because you can't go to any used game store. You can't find it. If you go to Amazon, you're going to be paying as much as a new game. Come on, really? Why? Makes me want to throw everything out the window.
That is definitely something we need to talk about at some point, the price of gaming and stuff. But especially being a retro gaming collector or just in collecting in general.
Yes.
But David, let's get into the news topic for this episode. You were telling us earlier before we got into the podcast.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that y'all hadn't heard a whole lot about it, considering all the waves it's currently causing. But the open game license for Wizards of the Coast, right? Like they're making sizable changes to it. I can't go through all the details for it. There's a bunch of videos that exist out there where they have it pulled up, they're reading it through line by line and talking about each of the bullet points. But just kind of overall, Wizards of the Coast is coming for people's money, man. I mean, if you meet certain tiers within this new license system, man, they're going to be coming after 20% of your earnings. Like, that's crazy. And all it is it's all these creators, right, that are creating underneath the overall umbrella of the D&D system. It has nothing to do with Forgotten Realms. It has nothing to do with the D&D, like any specific campaign. It's all homebrew stuff, right? It's all campaigns and things that people are developing from the ground up by themselves, getting it kickstarted, and Wizards of the Coast is like, hey, yeah, we want a piece of that. We want some of that money. And it ties kind of back into the one D&D stuff that they're trying to push forward right now, right? Where what the CEO of Hasbro, which is the owner of Wizards of the Coast, has openly said that D&D is not monetized as much as it should be. So even though D&D is the biggest RPG on the world, right? Even though they've gotten so much exposure through Stranger Things, there's tons of tie-in properties. They've got the new movie coming out soon. even though all that's going on, they still are now basically going after the little guy, right? And that's kind of where things are up in the air right now, because no one's really sure how hard Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro are going to go after people, right? Like if you go do a Kickstarter and you raise $5,000 to do PDFs for a bunch of little bitty one shots, are they coming for your money? Are you going to have to start accounting for that? Or is this only meant to try and curb companies like Paizo, which, Pathfinder, the entirety of Pathfinder, is the basis for it was 3.5 edition, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what are they going to do with this new license? How, hard are they going to apply this hammer and apply this pressure on people moving forward? Because the language for it is really open. The ability for them to just step in and demand, right, that you basically fork over some amount of your earnings is crazy. And it makes you wonder about other properties, right? Like somebody brought up, one of the discussions I was seeing brought up Knights of the Old Republic, which is based on a D20 system.
Yeah.
So the original game is under the original game license, but if they ever did, a true, not just the re-release, right, but like a true remaster of those games, are they going to have to fundamentally change the system? Is it going to have to revert? Are they going to have to pay royalties now to Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast? Like, man, and Wizards and Hasbro hasn't said anything. And technically, what everyone's looking at right now isn't the official license. There's debate whether or not it's a draft, but Wizards of the Coast hasn't denied it. They haven't come out and said, "Oh yeah, no, this isn't what we're doing." They are dead silent, which leads a lot of people to believe that no, this is, if not legitimately the new license, it's close enough that it would be pointless for them to try and step in and argue otherwise. Right. So it's really I actually kickstarted a couple
what can I think of tabletop RPGs?
Not just RPGs, but like a couple of supplements, right? Like campaigns. I kickstarted a couple campaigns, and they've actually been released. They released multiple Kickstarter updates saying, "Hey guys, we know about the OGL. We're talking to people are lawyering up. They're going and talking to attorneys, saying, right. Hey, if this is what's coming, what's my recourse, right? What can I do to avoid, having to, fork over probably any kind of profit they're coming in with over this big company just because they're a little they're wanting a little bit more coin, which is crazy."
There's some big things that could come from this, because you got Dragon Age, which is also done by BioWare, that utilizes that system. And that means that, since we're getting these remasters, does EA, who owns BioWare now, have to worry about that? Does that mean that they're going to pull these games because they don't want to have to deal with the backfire from this?
Yeah.
So should we be buying our physical copies? People scrambling to get these things before it happens? I wonder also how much is going to affect any YouTuber or someone on any kind of streaming service who streams these games, because it's not something that that, hey, Hasbro's going to, hey, I want my money from this.
Yeah, are they going to say that's our property, we want a percentage, or you're going to get a copyright strike? Are they going to hold over everybody's head?
One of the things they do mention in there is essentially, hey, here's this overall license that everyone falls into, but you can try to reach out to them and strike a one-on-one deal. So instead of the old game license, right, where everyone fell under this umbrella and it was open, everybody could do, pretty much whatever they wanted as long as everything pointed back to the game license and D&D and Wizards of the Coast. Now, like, oh, hey, here's this overall umbrella, but do you want a sweetheart deal? Do you want, us to adjust it for you specifically? Well, come on over here and let's have conversations. Let's have chats, right? Because what's going to happen to Critical Role, right? I mean, is Critical Role going to have? Are we going to see them start playing Shadowrun all of a sudden, just out of nowhere? Hey guys, we're busting out World of Darkness now. We're going to go start playing Vampire the Masquerade because
hey, maybe they'll play Rifts. That'd be great. Palladium system.
Jordan.
I was gonna say, if they actually did start playing World of Darkness, I would absolutely watch the shit out of that.
Man, Wizards and D&D are doing a lot of stuff that is kind of it's kind of terrifying, right? Like I was watching someone have a discussion back when all we knew about was one D&D, and his fear was that it was going to neuter a lot of the secondary markets or just other systems, right? Because how do a lot of people stumble on, say, OSR or Powered by the Apocalypse or any of these other game systems? Mm-hmm. A lot of people these days, they're normies, right? So they start off watching Stranger Things, they go looking up D&D, they find out about Drive Through RPG or Roll20, and they see ads for this other stuff like, hey, here's a bunch of stuff with the crazy airships and cat people. What's that about? Go click on it. Leads you to a whole other side of the tabletop market. And D&D is not going to do that, right? D&D wants you to buy D&D. They're not going to sit there and say, oh, hey, by the way, instead of spending, your hard-earned cash on this new supplement and these awesome new skins that we're coming out with for one D&D, go ahead and go buy these new supplemental books that gives you more crazy cyberware and guns from Shadowrun. It's like, no, they're not going to do that. So how much exposure is going to be lost for all these other companies because of that? It's like it's really depending on how far they go, it's really going to start affecting and changing a lot of what has become the established tabletop market as we know it. Potentially, well, right?
They're definitely going into that whole thing of having everything be completely digital. So you can't just get on Amazon and get, the newest module for, half the price of what, its retail cost is. That's going to affect a lot of things too. You think about the mom and pop shops that have, gaming material.
Right.
I mean,
all the gaming stores that are trying to make a comeback. And like we got one out in Oswego. Huge place, like 8 tables set up for different gaming and stuff like that. If this thing kicks through, they're going to take a hit. All the little shops are going to be like, okay, we can't do this now. What do we do? And it's gonna cascade.
Well, and you have people that are going to refuse to purchase this new one D&D, and then that could be a benefit to those mom and pop shops because there are people that want to print or give you PDFs. And you can still do things and you can go buy dice and miniatures and things. But this also goes back to the whole thing of what's going on with Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast with Magic. I've heard that what they've been doing with that, how there's so many collector sets and you get the better cards in the higher end booster packs than you do the standard. And there's multiples. They're just flooding the market with stuff to just get people's money and stuff. It's not like what it used to be. You had a set that came out and, you may have to buy maybe 2 or 3 boxes to get everything you want out of the whole set. But that was it. There was no like 4 variants and
well, even more than that, I mean, just within the last year, it feels like Magic has come out with 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like every month and a half.
Every month is there something new.
Hey, here's like Techno Tokyo Magic the Gathering. Oh, hey, here's Warhammer 40K Magic the Gathering. Here's a Dungeons and Dragons tie-in Magic the Gathering. It's like they just keep pumping them out, and it's crazy, right? Like they're killing the player base because you can't keep up. And that sucks. It really does because, I mean, with people that have been invested with it for so long, and you have the FOMO kicking in hard, but man, you can only live on that for so long before all of a sudden you turn around and realize I'm broke as shit.
It's like putting Batman in every other comic.
Yeah,
I have no room for anything now because my whole entire house or apartment is filled with Magic cards.
Yeah. Turned him into wallpaper.
So
play off the wall.
It's crazy.
I mean, this is going to go into other things too. We know this. I mean, there's already changes from YouTube that's going to happen that are going to affect a lot of people with like the violence and cussing that are going to be very similar to what TikTok does.
Yeah.
Where they censor stuff for no reason, even though it's fake. It's like, oh, you can't do this. Or even like for us, it's like, we're definitely not a channel for kids. We're a adults channel. And so if we cuss, there should be no backfire from that. But because we cuss, there is a possibility that none of our stuff would be monetized, or there would be no ads in front of it. We could become monetized, but we wouldn't get ad revenue.
Right.
We have other ways of doing it. So it's definitely something very scary as being a independent content creator, or an independent creator for anything, or a player and all that stuff. So it's definitely scary. Then there's no competition for YouTube, Wizards of the Coast. I mean, there are other card games and stuff, but most people want to play D&D. They want to play Magic.
Right. And I'm worried about it becoming a monopoly.
Yeah.
Because that's the scariest part right now. If they go after this, and they go after every dollar, and they go after every little nuance to any degree, that's going to make them the big kid on the block, and they're just going to keep consuming.
But how can you do that for it's like all these other issues, right? With all these other companies that we see where they want to go after the casuals, right? They want to go after the normies. Right. But is a casual D&D player going to be like the hardcore ones? Are they going to buy all the supplements? Are they going to go into DMing where not only are you buying all the supplements, but you're buying supplements on top of the supplements, especially when you go into like digital tabletop types, right? Where you gotta, you're buying you're buying backgrounds, right? You're buying packs with character models and item models and all this other stuff. Like, how are they going to be spending all that money on that kind of stuff? Like, what's going to happen? And like, Wizards might see a boost in their sales for a while, but I can't imagine it would stay like that for long. Eventually, it would have to taper off because they're gonna milk this cow dry and then start looking for the dust.
I mean, a lot of this has to do with Hasbro hurting for money at the moment because their toy manufacturing's hurting because of the poor quality of some of the figures they produce, and that's all across the board between G.I. Joe, Transformers, Ghostbusters, and then there's like multiple variants. It's like, oh, this is for kids. Oh, this is for adult collectors. And they don't produce enough for it to be on the shelf so people can buy it, and that only breeds secondhand resellers to go in, buy it before a customer comes in, and then they're making like triple the profit.
Yeah.
And
it kind of sounds like the stories I've heard about the comics from the 90s, right? Where it was like, hey, here's 80 million variant covers, and this one's like crazy holographic, and this one's this, and this one's that. They're just flooding things out there, and the quality is dipping, and it's got to catch up to them eventually, and what that'll look like and who they'll bring down with them will be interesting to see.
Well, you're going to definitely have a fraction of the fan base. You're going to have people that are going to play the older games because they have the older modules, the older books, and they don't have to worry about anything. Then you're going to have the people that are going to go into this because they're blind and they want to get the newest thing, the FOMO. And then you're going to have the people that are going to be pretty smart. It's like, well, you know what? I can just go play a video game online with some people and not have to do any of this. We just get a group of friends together. We'll play an MMO. We'll go raid a bunch. I mean,
just don't stream COD on YouTube or you'll get demonetized.
Especially now with the new changes coming up.
But hey, I'm with Colin's son. Critical Role, World of Darkness. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, it would also be a good slap in the face for them as well, for Wizards. Like,
right?
Yeah. Oh, the thing that like helped push D&D into the mainstream, because Critical Role did help to an extent. After Stranger Things initially like pushed it, Critical Role helped like sail the ship. Honestly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So having them just go to an entirely different module would just, because World of Darkness also genuinely needs a push because of the fact that it's still niche, even though it really shouldn't be. Yeah, but
considering the video games it's put out and like
Yeah.
especially the exposure it's had in the last couple of years, you'd think they would have a little bit more for it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's still
Vampire the
people
Masquerade.
Vampire, it feels like, and that's about it. And even then, people only vaguely know of Vampire, right? It's like Shadowrun. A lot of people know about Shadowrun. It's got some really good video games. But God help you trying to find somebody that's actually played it.
Yeah. I remember there was a Nintendo Direct where I believe a Shadowrun game was announced to be coming over to the Switch, and everyone collectively went, "Wait, what's Shadowrun? Why does it look cool?" And it's like, how do none of you know?
Yeah, no, well, they of course. The thing is that as the world adopts pop culture, and it's great, people coming in and loving this stuff. And then that brings that whole things of the walls that separate us down, so we can all become more friendly and used to these things. But it's like then it's like, well, we've been in this for a while, and like you guys don't know.
How?
But those Shadowrun games are great on the PC.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Those Shadowrun Returns, right? And then God, what was it? Chinese something? Yeah. I need to finish the second one. I played and I beat the first one, and it's great. And I think that's the one that's specifically being ported over to the Switch. And then I have the other one that they came out with. I need to go play.
And that was using the engine from XCOM, if I remember correctly, when they were developing that. So, but yeah, it's just like film. It's like board games, tabletops, video games. All this stuff is starting to really kind of see the effects of the world changing, and it's not for the best. I mean, we get some cool stories, but it's going to hurt our pocketbooks more. It's going to change a lot of things. That's where that whole physical media stuff is going to really kind of
right. And people down the line from us, like Travis and Edward and stuff, and David's kids, when they go to get to the point where they want to play the stuff that we grew up playing and they want to be involved, it may not be available. It may be paywall stuff. It may be memory. It may be lore. It may not be there.
It could also be dilapidated beyond all belief because the people who make it don't care anymore.
Correct. If nothing's stored, and the fact that we're already starting to see the effects of disk rot, there's going to be a whole generation of video games that are just going to not exist anymore unless it's backed up.
And the same thing with RPGs. The only reason that D&D is going to survive is because that people hold on to the books. They hold on to the modules. They hold on to the maps and the characters.
Yeah, I mean it's already hard to find some stuff, right? Like there was a whole writers group that existed that published some of the biggest, most well-known like secondary supplements for the games, and the head guy of that particular writers group got caught up in I think a Me Too allegation, or he got online and said some stuff that a bunch of people didn't like, and immediately all of that stuff, even though he wasn't the one that wrote some of these modules, he wasn't the one that came up with some of these things, everything that was even remotely tied to that group just gone. It's disappeared. And some of it's starting to slowly trickle back in. But man, there's some stuff like there was a module that specifically dealt with the Underdark and the Drow goddess, the spider goddess, I can't remember her name. And it's considered like one of the greatest adventure modules ever devised for early D&D. And God help you, man, to find it. Like it's a pain. And like everywhere you go leads you to that one website that's shut down because the dude got wiped out from it. It's like, how is that only held right there? Why isn't this provided anywhere else? Like why is it so hard? I don't know, man. It's crazy.
Should it have became open source at that point?
You would think. I mean, it's been so long, but trademark stuff is weird. Ownership can be weird sometimes. Who knows?
Right. Absolutely.
There was a dude that was doing a game, I think back in 2012 or between 2012 and 2014, that was like going to be kind of cyberpunk, side-scrolling puzzle. Reminded me of like Flashback. I can't remember the name of it. Game looked great. I was hyped for it. Then he got some kind of attacked by I don't think it was the Me Too movement, but he was definitely he had some weird political things that people didn't like, and he completely
disappeared.
Yeah. And
I was just gonna say it's definitely one of those things where I understand like when the political views are extreme in the worst ways, but when it's just like I imposed your belief, it's like I don't get why that's such a problem on Twitter. Like it's almost as if discourse is what helps guide the world or something.
Well, it's definitely one of those arguing. Yeah. It's definitely one of those things where it's like everyone has become a Sith. It's all absolutes. If you're not with me, you're against me, then they're my enemy and I'm going to destroy you.
No, it is straight up the Sith. It is.
Yeah. We're at this point now where it's like I wonder and I fear for my son's future and my niece and nephew, because just great storytelling in the past use the backdrop of the current events that were going on at the time. And we had great writers that found ways to tell those stories without it being so on the nose. But if you were educated, you would know. But they were good ways to tell a story and metaphors and things to help us move past some of the things that we feared or hated.
Right. And that brings up another interesting point about Logan. Okay. He has really started to find his voice on social media. He is really digging in, and he is really, I'm really proud of what he's been able to accomplish and everything like that. With all of this stuff coming, you got this young man with a real creative background and really, full hit, like the full family history of, all these great ideas and stuff like that. And all of a sudden he's going to get stifled. What's that going to do? What's that going to do to people like him? It just, you're not going to, all these avenues and all these approaches that these young creators are going to be able to have their moment. They're going to see, okay, this could be a thing for me. If not, I'm young enough, I can go on and do other things. But, they're going to run into the same problems we're looking at now.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of a sidebar to the whole bit of that is this with regard to the whole like Twitter canceling thing is also when it just completely destroys a project that has multiple people on it just because one person is kind of busy. Like, I don't like Busy Pop because she's done some bad shit, but she at the very least like has a vision of something that is half decent, and she has a bunch of people who actually want to get further in making shows and voice acting and shit working behind her. And reason why I don't tell people not to watch like Has Been Hotel or whatever is because of the fact that those people deserve their shot, even if I don't like her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which ties back into the whole topic of the show. You get all these crew and all these people and these great shows, and they're just getting their head of steam, and then they get canceled. Then you get all these people who have to scatter.
Yeah, have to find something.
Yeah.
You get a great thing. You got a great cast and crew, and it really gels, and you really want to see more come of it. And then, oh nope, you're done.
Yeah.
One quick thing.
What's up?
I wanted to introduce my analogy of what Kathleen Kennedy did to Star Wars. Okay. You're a rebel. You see this ship coming into view. You look up. It's this. Okay. What do?
Find Godzilla, because that's the only thing that can probably take out that giant Imperial.
Only now, if we could go and superimpose her head over that thing, that'd be great. But the rebels are going to be like, really? So that's my Kathleen Kennedy analogy.
That toy does represent this. I mean, merchandise that no one wants.
Yeah.
You don't want a giant redheaded stormtrooper on top of the Star Destroyer?
Yeah, I mean, can you just imagine that? Can you really? I mean, just you're standing there and they're coming through the clouds. Oh, it's a Star Destroyer. Yikes, we got to get ready. And then there's the head. It's, it's this. I mean, come on. Look how big that is.
Can I get Mara Jade on top of there and she's like destroying it? Luke's wife. She's a redhead. She's got a purple lightsaber.
She doesn't exist. It's fine. But no, as the head comes cresting through the clouds, I would just assume that I'm in a different movie and I would start calling everything the Schwartz.
I can just imagine the rebels looking up at it and going, wow, it's super marketable. And you can buy yours at.
Yes. Well, and see, that's the whole thing, man.
Yeah.
You goes back to the fact that we're losing some of the greatest creators that made amazing content. And, Mel Brooks is still with us, but we're never going to get Spaceballs 2.
Yeah.
And so he could make fun of everything.
History of the World Part 2 is coming out this year, the limited series. So eventually that will be one of my favorite topics to talk about.
So, and that can be what next week's topic is let's talk about some Terry Gilliam and Mel Brooks films, Monty Python.
Yeah.
British humor.
Yeah, the goodies. Absolutely. Let's do it.
See if Dad doesn't want to be, that he would like to be a part of it or something.
All right, by me.
So,
David?
Good for you, David?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We did go off the rails. That is our number one thing. We do go off the rails almost every episode. But we hope you enjoyed. Catch you next one. Later.
Deuces.